How to color grade with Dehancer from start to finish. As you can see, we're in DaVinci Resolve and I've imported some footage, as you can see. And what I want to do first is put them in a timeline. And as you can see, this one is in log. This was actually shot on a custom profile on the Sony ZV-E10. It's a combination of S-Log2 and S-Gamma3.Cine. And this profile works pretty good with 8-bit Sony cameras, so this is what I used for some of these shots. These two shots are on the iPhone with the Moment Camera app, and this one is with the flat picture profile, and this is also on the flat picture profile. Before we start to work with Dehancer, we want to convert the footage to Rec 709. For that, we go to the color tab, and I want to make about 3 nodes. First one is for white balance, second one is for contrast or exposure, and the third one is gonna be CST. And then we put color space transform in the last node, choose S-Gamma3.Cine for input color space. Input gamma was S-Log2, so we choose that. And output color space is of course Rec 709. And output gamma, because I'm on a Mac, not Rec 709, I'm gonna choose Rec 709A. Because when I choose Rec 709, you can see it's a huge gamma shift and it doesn't look like Rec 709, so I choose Rec 709A. And then I just copy this whole grade by clicking on this clip, pressing Command C by holding Command and clicking on those 2 clips, and then Command V. We are pasting the color grade. So in this case, it's the conversion to Rec 709. In this case, I might want to make some white balance adjustments because it's a little bit on the yellow side. So we take the offset wheel and pull it towards blue. This looks about fine. Yeah, that looks good. And in this case, we can make some exposure adjustments. So I pull down the offset wheel and change to waveform and pull it down even further. And I think it looks pretty good in this clip. On the first clip, we can maybe pull down the brightness too, so I just pull it down. And I want to warm it up on white balance, so it's more on the yellow side because of the sun, because when it's too blue, it looks a bit off in my opinion. Then we go to these clips, and I make about 2 nodes in this case. First one is gonna be white balance again, and the second one is contrast. And then I just increase the contrast in this case. This is all we need to do. Then I copy this grade again and paste it on here. But in this case, we need to make some different adjustments. So we go to custom curves and pull this down. And now it looks pretty good. Maybe warm it up because it's sunset. In this case, I want to use the temperature wheel because it looks better in my opinion for sunsets. Now we can start to use Dehancer. If you want to have the same Dehancer grade on all the clips, you can click on clip and choose timeline. And then you can make a new node with Option or Alt S, and then you put Dehancer on here, and then you get the same grade with Dehancer on all the clips instead of doing the same on every clip. But in this case, we want to do it manually, so I go back to the clip mode, and then I make a new node after the CST. So we make a new node, then we go to Effects and move this a bit so that we can see everything. And we put Dehancer Pro on the last node. And now we can make all the adjustments we want to make. In this case, I want to start with the film profiles so that we use a different film stock. And I just try some different profiles and see what looks the best for me. Mostly I use the Kodak Vision 3 profiles because I like them the most. And in this case, I want to use the Kodak Vision 3 50D. Maybe use some push and pull to see what looks best. And I think that looks pretty good. And also when we go to input, some cases you can choose the camera. So sometimes when you're shooting an S-Log3, for example, you can choose the Sony camera, for example, the A7S3. And then you can choose the format, for example, S-Log3, S-Gamma3, and then you can choose it here so you don't have to convert it to Rec 709. And you can also make the exposure and temperature adjustments in this plugin, so you don't actually need to make these steps what I did here before. But we reset that and leave it at Rec 709. And also if you want to work in a different color space, for example, if you want to use DaVinci White Gamut, you can choose that here. And then you need to go to the color management options and change these to color managed, turn off automatic, and then you can choose HDR, DaVinci White Gamut Intermediate, and Rec 709 as an output. But in this case, I want to leave it at Rec 709 because it's easier, and especially because we got Rec 709 footage in here. What I've learned is that Rec 709 doesn't work that good with DaVinci White Gamut, so I just leave it at Rec 709 here. So then we turn on the film compression. This actually pulls down the highlights so that it looks like it has more dynamic range. So I play around with the impact so that we find a good middle point for this shot. I think 53 or 54 looks pretty good, so we leave it here. Then we can jump over to print, and in this case I want to use the Kodak 2383 print film, but also the Fujifilm looks pretty good. I found out that the Fujifilm print film looks the best on cars, but in this case we don't have cars, we have a forest. So I want to use the Kodak 2383, and then I want to make some adjustments in here. For example, the color density. This is what I love the most on this plugin, because you can pull up the color density. And we can go to film grain, and in this case I want to use the 60mm with ISO 50, because up here you can see we use the Kodak Vision 350D, and I think it matches the best with ISO 50. Then we go to halation, enable it, and turn it also to 60mm because I love 60mm film. If you want to do it manually, you can go to custom mode, and then you can switch everything as you want it, but I want to use the preset, so we change it back to 60mm. Then I want to activate the bloom, and we also switch it to 60mm. So if it's too strong for you, you can deactivate bloom, for example, and halation. Now you get only the grain and the colors of film. But if you want to have the natural film look, you can enable everything. And you also have the option to activate film damage, film brief, gate weave, and the vignette. And in this case, I just want to enable the vignette, so we enable it. So this is basically the base grade, what we want to do with Dehancer. But the cool thing with Dehancer is you can color grade underneath it. So we move all these nodes and make a new node after contrast. I'm gonna call this hue versus. And then we can go to the hue curves, make a few points so that we can make some adjustments. And now we can move everything. So for example, if we want to have more greens, we can pull down the yellow as I did here. But if you want to warm it up, you can pull it up. And then I want to increase the saturation a bit. Then we can jump over to the contrast node, and I want to make some adjustments here so that we can increase the contrast. You can also do this with Dehancer, but I want to do it manually in the curves over here. And I think it looks pretty good in my opinion. And now I want to jump over to the white balance node, and I want to warm it up even more. So we change the temperature here so that it's a bit warmer. So this is Rec 709, and this is after it's color graded, and as you can see it makes a huge difference. Now I want to jump over to this clip, so I make a new node after the CST again, call it Dehancer, go to effects and put it on here. And now we do the same, so I'm choosing a nice profile for this clip. In this case I want to try the Kodak Vision 3 250D. Then we activate film compression again, but don't make it as strong in this case because we don't have that much highlights in this clip. Then we can jump over to print again, and I think in this case we can actually use the Fujifilm one, increase the color density. And in this case I want to increase the tonal contrast so it's more contrasty. And then we can also adjust the target white, so if it's more on the warm side or if it's a bit more on the blue side. And in this case I want to make it maybe a bit on the blue side, so we pull it to the right. We can also activate analog range limiter if we want to, but I like it more if it's turned off, so we leave it like that. And I want to change the film grain to 60mm ISO 250, and I don't want it to be too strong of a film look, so I want to just have mostly the colors and the grain of film. So we leave the halation turned off and just turn on the vignette again. And now I want to make two new nodes between these two. This one is gonna be hue versus again, and this one is lift gamma gain, so LGG. And first I want to go to the contrast node, and I want to work with the custom curves, make a nice little S curve, but not too strong. Then we go to hue versus, click on all the colors again so that we have a few points here. And then I want to move the yellow again a bit so that the colors are pretty nice. Pull down the green in this case. Doesn't make a huge difference, but maybe. But these colors change a bit. And then I want to pull up the blue so it's a bit more on the teal side. That's before and that's after. And as you can see, it warmed up the whole image, and this is what I wanted to achieve with that. Then we can go to the primaries, and I want to pull down the lift and pull up the gamma to the warm side again. And then I want to see what looks the best with gain, if it looks the best when we pull it to the warm side, or if it looks the best if we pull it to the blue side. And I think the warm side looks the best. So this is the Rec 709 that we started with, and this is the color graded image. So now I copied these nodes to this clip from the iPhone, and when I activate it, it looks like this. So it looks pretty cool in my opinion. And actually we don't need to make any adjustments, so we can leave it like that and can jump over to the last clip. So for this clip I want to have a general really warm look, maybe with the accent of blue, so we try that with Dehancer. In this case I want to prepare for everything that we want to do, so I make 3 nodes. The last one is gonna be Dehancer, of course. This one is gonna be hue versus again, as we already know. And this one is of course lift gamma and gain. Now we pull Dehancer on this again, and we go straight to film. So I try to choose a really warm one, maybe Kodak Vision 3 200T. And I think we can leave it in the middle. Activate film compression, and now we can really see what it does. And we can go to print again. We choose the Kodak one, increase the color density, not too strong because then we can maybe see some artifacts. So we try to find a good middle point. Increase the tonal contrast. And now we want to pull the target white all the way to the left so it's more on the warm side. And we can also use the color head in this case if we want to. So I enable it. This is like the OG way of color grading, because when we pull it to the blue side, it increases the blue in the image, and if we pull it to the yellow side, it increases the yellow on the whole image. And I think when we pull it to the yellow side, it looks the best. Maybe try some magenta. Yeah, now it's a bit more on the red side. Then I want to activate the halation, but leave it at 35mm, because with that profile, the halation is a bit more gentle. Then we can try out some bloom, if it looks good or not. I prefer it without bloom, so we leave it off. Then we can choose the vignette. And then we can go to the next node, the hue versus node. And then we do the same, click on all the colors as always. Pull up the blues so that the blues are more on the teal side, and pull up the yellows. Maybe make a point here so it's not affecting as much. Then we can jump to lift, gamma, and gain again. And maybe try some color balancing by using the lift wheel. Pull up the gamma. And we do the same with the gain maybe. We can either go to the left so it's more warm, or we can go to the blue and balance it out a bit more, but in this case I prefer the warm one. So this is the Rec 709, and this is the color graded image, and as you can see it looks pretty good. Now I want to jump back to the first clip because I want to make some changes here, because I think the halation is a bit too strong in my opinion. So we go to the Dehancer node and search for halation, and then I want to change it back to 35, and now it's a lot more gentle. And I prefer this look over the 60mm one. And now it's actually finished. So as you can see, you can make really good looks with Dehancer, and you can also color grade underneath it and enhance the look even more. If you want to learn more about Dehancer, you can click on the video on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and see you guys in the next video.